Yes. So, welcome everyone. Yeah. So, this you can do. Start.
वासुदेवेन्द्रयोगेन्द्रं नत्वा ज्ञानप्रदं गुरुं मुमुक्षूणां हितार्थाय तत्त्वबोधोऽभिधीयते। नित्यं शुद्धं निराभासं निराकारं निरञ्जनम् नित्यबोधं चिदानन्दं गुरुं ब्रह्मा नमाम्यहम्।
Be good. Should I do first?
Yeah.
Atha
अथ
Chaturvimshati
चतुर्विंशति
Tattvotpatti Prakaram
तत्त्वोत्पत्तिप्रकारम्
Tattvotpatti Prakaram Vakshyamaha
वक्ष्यामः।
Brahmashraya
ब्रह्माश्रया
Tatvarajastamo
सत्त्वरजस्तमो
Gunatmika
गुणात्मिका
Maya Asti
माया अस्ति।
Tatah Akashah Sambhutah
तत आकाशः सम्भूतः
Akashadvayuh
आकाशाद्वायुः
Vayostejah
वायोस्तेजः
तेजस आपः
तेजस आपः
अद्भ्यः पृथिवी
अद्भ्यः पृथिवी
एतेषां पञ्चतत्त्वानां
एतेषां पञ्चतत्त्वानां
मध्ये
मध्ये आकाशस्य
सात्विकांशात्
सात्विकांशात्
श्रोत्रेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
श्रोतेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
श्रोत्रेन्द्रियं
श्रोत्रेन्द्रियं
सम्भूतम्
सम्भूतम्
वायोः सात्विकांशात्
वायो सात्विकांशात्
त्वगिन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
त्वगिन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
अग्नेः सात्विकांशात्
अग्नेः सात्विकांशात्
चक्षुरिन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
चक्षुरिन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
जलस्य सात्विकांशात्
जलस्य सात्विकांशात्
रसनेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
रसनेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
पृथिव्याः सात्विकांशात्
पृथिव्याः सात्विकांशात्
घ्राणेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
घ्राणेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
एतेषां पञ्चतत्त्वानां
एतेषां पञ्चतत्त्वानां
समष्टिसात्विकांशात्
समष्टिसात्विकांशात्
मनोबुद्ध्यहङ्कार
बुद्ध्य अहङ्कार
मनोबुद्ध्यहङ्कार
मनोबुद्ध्यहङ्कार
चित्तान्तःकरणानि
चित्तान्तःकरणानि
सम्भूतानि
सम्भूतानि
सङ्कल्पविकल्पात्मकं मनः
सङ्कल्पविकल्पात्मकं मनः
निश्चयात्मिका बुद्धिः
निश्चयात्मिका बुद्धिः
अहङ्कर्ता अहङ्कारः
अहङ्कर्ता अहङ्कारः
चिन्तनकर्त्री चित्तम्
चिन्तनकर्त्री चित्तम्
चिन्तनकर्त्री चित्तम्
चिन्तनकर्त्री
चित्तम्
चित्तम्
चिन्तनकर्त्री
चिन्तनकर्ती
कर्त्री
कर्त्री
Mm,
चिन्तनकर्त्री चित्तम्
excellent. मनसो देवता चन्द्रमाः
मनसो देवता चन्द्रमाः
बुद्धिर्ब्रह्मा
बुद्धिर्ब्रह्मा
अहङ्कारस्य रुद्रः
अहङ्कारस्य रुद्रः
चित्तस्य वासुदेवः
चित्तस्य वासुदेवः
एतेषां पञ्चतत्त्वानां मध्ये
एतेषां पञ्चतत्त्वानां मध्ये
आकाशस्य राजसांशात्
आकाशस्य राजसांशात्
त्वगिन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
त्वगिन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
वायोर्राजसांशात्
वायोराजसांशात्
I'm sorry. आकाशस्य वागिन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
आकाशस्य वागेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
वायोर्राजसांशात्
वायोराजसांशात्
पाणिन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
पाणेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
वह्ने राजसांशात्
वह्नेः राजसांशात्
पादेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
पादेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
जलस्य राजसांशात्
जलस्य राजसांशात्
उपस्थेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
उपस्थेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
पृथिव्या राजसांशात्
पृथिव्या राजसांशात्
बुधेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
बुधेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
एतेषां समष्टिराजसांशात्
एतेषां समष्टि राजसांशात्
पञ्चप्राणाः सम्भूताः
पञ्चप्राणाः सम्भूताः
एतेषां पञ्चतत्त्वानां मध्ये
एतेषां पञ्चतत्त्वानां मध्ये तामसांशात्
पञ्चीकृत पञ्चतत्त्वानि भवन्ति
पञ्चीकृत पञ्चतत्त्वानि भवन्ति
पञ्चीकरणं कथमपि इति चेत् एतेषां
पञ्चमहाभूतानां
तामसांशस्वरूपम्
तामसांशस्वरूपम् एकमेकं भूतं
द्विधा विभज्य एकमेकमर्धं पृथक् तूष्णीं व्यवस्थाप्य अपरमपरमर्धम् correct once more
अपरमपरमर्धम्
चतुर्धा विभज्य स्वार्धमन्येषु अर्धेषु
स्वाधर्मनेषु अर्धेषु स्वार्धमन्येषु
correct once more
स्वाधर्मनेषु
no स्वार्धमा
स्वार्धमन्येषु
correct because if it was dharm the curve on top would be on ma. So since it's on dha, so it means it precedes dha. So you'll pronounce it first. So swardhamanyeshu. स्वार्थमन्येषु अर्थेषु
स्वार्थमन्येषु अर्धेषु
स्वभागचतुष्टयसंयोजनम्
स्वभागचतुष्टयसंयोजनं कार्यम्
एतेषां पञ्चमहाभूतानां
एतेषां पञ्चमहाभूतानां
तामसांशस्वरूपम्
तामसांशस्वरूपम्
एकमेकं भूतम्
एकमेकं भूतं
द्विधा विभज्य एकमेकमर्थं पृथक्
एकमेकमर्धं पृथक्
तूष्णीं व्यवस्थाप्य
तूष्णीं व्यवस्थाप्य
अपरमपरमर्थम्
अपरमपरमर्धं
चतुर्धा विभज्य
चतुर्धा विभज्य
स्वार्थमन्येषु अर्थेषु
मन्येषु अर्धेषु स्वार्धमन्येषु
अर्थेषु
अर्धेषु
स्वभागचतुष्टय
स्वभागचतुष्टय
संयोजनं कार्यम् तदा पञ्चीकरणं भवति
तदा पञ्चीकरणं भवति
एतेभ्यः पञ्चीकृत पञ्चमहाभूतेभ्यः
पञ्चमहाभूतेभ्यः
स्थूलशरीरं भवति
स्थूलशरीरं भवति
एवं पिण्डब्रह्माण्डयोः ऐक्यं सम्भूतम् एवं पिण्डब्रह्माण्डयोरैक्यं सम्भूतम्
एवं पिण्डब्रह्माण्डयोरैक्यं सम्भूतम्
ब्रह्माण्डयोरैक्यं
सम्भूतम्
स्थूलशरीराभिमानी जीवनामकं ब्रह्मप्रतिबिम्बं भवति स एव जीवः प्रकृत्या स्वस्मात् ईश्वरं भिन्नत्वेन जानाति अविद्योपाधिः सन् आत्मा जीव इत्युच्यते मायोपाधिः सन् ईश्वर इत्युच्यते एवम् उपाधिभेदात् जीवेश्वरभेददृष्टिः यावत्पर्यन्तं तिष्ठति तावत्पर्यन्तं
जन्ममरणादिरूपसंसारो
न निवर्तते तस्मात् कारणान्न जीवेश्वरयोः भेदबुद्धिः स्वीकार्य. Great. Thank you. Excellent. So we are seeing the definition of Jiva, understanding that who is a Jiva. And as per Tattva Bodha, Shankaracharya, who's written Tattva Bodha, in his digested knowledge, he says, Sthula Sharira Abhimani is Jiva, is called Jiva. This is the first, call it definition or first indication. First description of who's a Jiva is Sthula Sharira Abhimani. Whoever has the Abhiman, whoever has the ownership of a gross body, she's called Jiva. Second is Brahma Pratibhimbam Bhavati, is a reflection of Brahman. This, who's called a Jiva, is also a Pratibhimb, reflection of Brahma. Third is such a one who is a Jiva, naturally, by default, Prakritya, by one's own natural thinking process, Swasmat, one's own self, Ishwaram Bhinnatvena Janati, knows himself, herself as separate from Ishvara. This is the third thing. So, technically speaking, how has he started to think like this? How do we find ourselves by default? That we think we are separate from Ishvara, that we own up without any choice, that I have a body the minute I am in a waking state. I say I am a body, I am this weight, I am this size, I am this color. We just associate the features of the body as one's own features. How is this possible that we think in ourselves such? What is the cause of it? Shastra Vidya now says. So what are the first two lines? First two lines are like Anuvada. Anuvada means, part of it is Anuvada, means what we naturally think. So Sthula Sharira Abhimani Jiva is a natural Prakritya thinking. Ishvara Bhinnatvena Janati Swasmat, natural Prakritya thinking, possible by itself. Brahma Pratibhimbam is now introduction by the text, by Vedantic vision of this Acharya. And what is the cause of this? How can I say I am, and not only I think, every human being thinks like this, or whoever has the Sthula Sharira Abhiman, this is a universal observation, therefore it's a correct principle. What is the cause? If we were to ask, from where has this thinking emerged in us? I didn't develop it. I found myself with it. So from what is the cause of it? The cause is avidya upadhihi. Sun means remaining. As long as avidya remains, that avidya becomes the upadhi for Atma being seen as Jiva. That is what is said. Iti uchyate. In this manner it is said. As long as sun means remaining, as long as there is avidya, remaining avidya, that becomes the upadhi for Atma to be mistaken as a Jiva. Maya upadhi is sun. As long as there is a Maya upadhi, Ishvara iti uchyate. Same, Atma here would be Brahman. Brahman is called Ishvara. Ishvara iti uchyate. Wherever there is a Maya upadhi alone, there the term is Ishvara. Evam, in this manner, just the upadhi bhedat is Jiva Ishvara bheda drishtihi. Yavat paryantam, as long as tishtati, this remains. Tavat paryantam, so long. Janma maran adi rupa sansaraha, this birth and death cycle constantly, and afflicted with samsara in between, afflicted with pain, sorrow, difficulties, hardships struggles, heat and cold, joy and sorrow, honor and dishonor, the realm of the pairs of opposites and their experiences, na nivartate. You have no resolution of them. There is no freedom from them. You cannot get out of this. You cannot wish for it. However much you wish, it will not be fulfilled. However much you want. Sorry, Akanksha, you want to say something?
दीदी जी आप कंप्लीट कर लीजिए उसके बाद देयर इज अ ग्रामेटिकल थिंग दैट आई वांटेड टू आस्क बट आई जस्ट थॉट कि मैं बता दूं ताकि मेरा ट्रेन ऑफ थॉट नहीं तो छूट
What was I saying?
यू वर टॉकिंग कि उसका रेजोल्यूशन नहीं होगा न निवर्तते.
So samsara does not get resolved. Samsara does not end. Tasmat karanat. I was actually elaborating a bit and I think my thought went away. Samsara is so the pairs of opposites, the realm of the pairs of opposites and their experiences. One, however much one may wish for, to find resolution, to find relief, however much one may want, hope to get freedom from it, it is not going to get fulfilled. So whatever one may have in terms of a realistic vision of life, one of my first takeaways since the book is now concluding, if I have to draw an anchor into what would I reflect upon amongst many things, each one of us can write those things down on their own. What would I reflect upon is how much is the hope I have of a resolution remaining in the world with the Ishvara Jiva Bheda Drishti. How much hope do I yearn for, or how much hope do I have, how much expectation do I keep in myself that I will find freedom from struggles while entertaining Jiva Ishvara Bheda. Means I am keeping the Jiva Ishvara Bheda intact. In fact, I don't even know that till the Shastras told me. So I just presume Ishvara is there to help me resolve my struggles and help me find freedom from my hardships and pains. I pray because of that. And here the Shastra says, you may find some relief, okay, but it is not going to be a resolution for good. Na nivartate. It cannot end. It does not get, it's like saying every time winter comes and whatever crops a farmer has grown, and then he tills the ground, prepares it before monsoon. Whatever he had grown, he tills it. The ground is grazed completely for the fresh crop to grow. Supposing he just cannot that year, for whatever reason, God forbid, there is nothing planted on that field. Will the field sprout something or the other again or not? If he has not grown anything, he's been growing something on this field, but he has not grown anything now. This year he could not, but he's removed all the others. Will this ground once again sprout something?
जंगली घास हो सकती है.
कुछ भी हो सकता है, होएगा लेकिन. Correct. कुछ तो उगेगा. There will be something latent there. Sometimes many people ask, from their pots you find something new, that yes, there could be weeds. There can be something new plant has emerged that they did not sow, and they're like, where did this come from? Even in pots you find this. That means even when I'm seeing nothing on surface, there is still the seed inside which will sprout when the time is right, which will come up. So even if I see nothing, there is the potential of samsara always. How long is it there? As long as avidya upadhi is there. So long sansara na nivartate. That na nivartate, to highlight that is this example, means there is absolute no resolution. So what is the takeaway? Supposing I were to take away, I would spend weeks on reflecting just on this one thought. How much am I holding an expectation from outer world without anything from my own self, a relief for my struggles? How much am I holding? Because if you understand the statement, this is where I say Vedanta makes you the most commonsensical, realistic person in life. With no, as much you understand, that many airs disappear. That much frill disappears from life. It just makes you absolutely grounded and so realistic, because you just understand life can never not have struggles. Life can never not have hardships, etc. Your own conclusions will be drawn. What will be the outcome when you draw such conclusions? Supposing this has got anchored inside, I have understood this statement that as long as I have avidya, there is going to be no respite from struggles here and there. In between, yes, some freedom of, some help comes, some resolution comes. In summers, it's very interesting if you've ever observed, especially in Delhi, I know, where if you have a week of real hot summer, peak of May, suddenly there's this dry, it used to be, not, I don't know, when you would have this, you would suddenly find a relief from somewhere in the form of some shower. That little relief, and that nature has given you that little relief, but it doesn't mean it's a permanent relief. So the importance of Brahma Vidya grows on a person, and it becomes like a choiceless need somewhere. When you are able to keep in your mind the connection that the struggles that I see here, whether it's mine or anybody else's, that life is with struggles, there is no doubt about. That every life form has struggles, there is no doubt about. Whether I have more or less is not the question. There will be more or less. But that it has struggles is choiceless. And if that is choiceless, what is the cause of that struggle? How can I end that struggle for good? Is there a temporary solution? Is there a permanent solution? The temporary solutions nature gives us, we earn it, we get it also, we find some help here and there, but you find yourself again in a cycle of a change and again in a cycle of some struggle or the other. Once again it has started, different maybe names and forms, but it almost seems that you still have compounded them to some extent. Tavat paryantam, as long as avidya is the upadhi, and you think Ishvara is different. Ishvara is different is because of Ishvara upadhi, not avidya upadhi. Ishvara is different because of Maya upadhi. You are seeing it different is because of avidya upadhi. Therefore, if this has to end, then the Jiva Ishvara Bhed, that buddhi of it ending, how is that understanding today default? It's a thinking. It's a form of a knowledge. That is an unquestioned knowledge. It's an assumed knowledge. Nobody knows God. Nobody knows Ishvara. So you have to go on faith, and you do not know how to resolve this by a simple system of knowledge. That is where Vedas come into picture, because of this fact that there is one realm which is the realm of Ishvara, which is just not provable. But there must be some way to resolve it. Because this thinking, as long as I hold, which thinking? Bheda Buddhi. The Bheda Buddhi is not just Ishvara and Jiva Bheda Buddhi. The same Bheda Buddhi becomes you and I are also different. Jagat and Jeev is also different. So as long as there is a Bheda Buddhi, Tavat Paryantam, till then there is no resolution. And if there is no resolution at all of my freedoms, then I need to figure it out. What is the cause? The cause is avidya. If the cause is gone, then the bhed is gone. And the whole Brahma Vidya means removal of the cause, because of which I see by default a bhed. You want to ask something now or later at the end?
दीप्ति जी, I wanted to ask, I think मुझे भी वही पूछना था, if you could go back, I think the उपाधि भेदात,
Yeah.
the एवं उपाधि भेदात जीवेश्वर भेद दृष्टि. So the जीवेश्वर भेद दृष्टि you've just explained, but उपाधि भेदात अभी आप explain कर रहे थे थोड़ा सा, if you could. I didn't get the part where you said कि हम माया को ईश्वर, I don't know that part, right?
Yeah. I don't know if you were in that class or not.
I
You have followed every class? Okay, then you'll catch up fast. See, we said Brahman is the ultimate truth, starting from there. The only one truth, final truth. Creation needs to be understood as Brahman, because I and you are experiencing a creation. If Brahman is the truth, then creation needs to be understood. To understand creation, the methodology of rewinding. Remember, we said once, स्वेटर बुनते हैं, एक ही धागे से पूरा स्वेटर बुन जाता है, और जब हमको उधेड़ना है, when we want to make it a ball of wool again, we pick up a thread loose end again and we start. What is that loose end? How will we rewind this creation? How will I end the idea that there is a creation? Is there a relief from creation? Because that is where I have all my dukkham from. The world is a source of my sorrow today. As an average person in the world, whatever difficulties we have, we always start by default. Everybody starts by pointing a finger outward. The fault lies out in the world. It is a creation, somewhere in creation, that the problem exists. And therefore I have a problem. That means creation and its idea is already the source of samsara to my mind. I am never a source of my samsara. All of us feel the cause of our problems lies outside of us. इसके कारण, उसके कारण, ये हो गया, वो हो गया, etc., etc., etc. Therefore, if I want to end the source of unhappiness and struggle that I experience, I must resolve my sense of creation, my experience of creation. And creation means plurality. And plurality is brought down. अब हम धागा उधेड़ना शुरू करें, तो plurality is brought down to duality. That duality to explain, Shastra introduces Maya. That Brahman itself remaining changeless. In its own self comes the first evolute. Non-separate from Brahman, as remaining non-separate, just as the dream has become an evolute of your own mind. Non-separate from your mind, it still is a dream world. In the same way, first evolute is Maya. And Maya itself being what further, how do I see all the world? I see it in three characteristics. If I rewind all the characteristics, they'll come back into these three qualities, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. This Trigunatmika Maya, Brahman with Maya is called Ishvara, the top line. So Ishvara means Maya Upadhi. So when there is a Maya Upadhi, Brahman is called Ishvara. And when there is this Maya further and all that, now Stula Sharira form, creation form, when there is Avidya Upadhi, who I am, I don't know who I am, and I have a Bheda Buddhi now, I find myself with this Avidya is the Jiva Upadhi. So if I want to end the creation, that Dvait now is Jiva Ishvara, Jiva Jagat. To end it means I must resolve the Upadhi Bhed. And to resolve the Upadhi Bhed means Ishvara's is not a separate entity. And from Ishvara came all the Devtas. None of them is a separate entity from Ishvara. Ishvara is not a separate entity from Brahman. And me seeing myself as separate as the Sthula Sharir, I am Atma and Atma is Brahman in totality. So you have removed avidya upadhi. Therefore, avidya upadhi is the cause of my samsara. And Maya was introduced in it, like I gave an example, Kataka nut powder. When you want to purify the water, you've introduced something. The properties of it is that it purifies and then eliminates itself. So Maya is that property which has been introduced to explain away logically so that our minds don't have confusions, and Brahma Vidya becomes the pursuit. And once avidya is gone, who I am is gone, then all this resolves automatically. Ishvara is Brahman anyway. Jiva, idea is Jiva is Brahman. So Jiva Ishvara Aikyam is formed. Yeah.
Thank you, Deepti ji. So then in that case, if we are saying, if we if avidya resolves, if avidya upadhi resolves, then we will stop seeing ourselves as the sthul sharira, and therefore this jeev drishti will go away and we will start looking at ourselves as Atma. And
it doesn't mean that you will. Now, let's take that question. Now, that's again a bifurcation, but I'll answer this just to complete it. It is not that you start looking, when we come to the topic of moksha, it will become evident there. It's not that you stop seeing yourself as a Sthula Sharir at all. Just as sunrise, how do you see a sunrise?
Yeah.
You see it with beauty as is, but with knowledge that the sun is not rising. So it is entirely a transformation in thinking, in the outlook, in the perspective, in how you see things. Today you see them as limited to a form. With Brahma Vidya, you realize what is free from the form, that you are free from the form. So the afflictions are not there. A further topic, let me conclude these topics. This question, park again for more clarity. This is a complete tangential. So let's come back to the topic, and we are still understanding what is Jiva. So till you get a complete understanding of what is a Jiva, I personally feel that Brahma Vidya does not make much impact, even if you know it, because who is a Jiva is not a question of just words. It's a question of placement. Where have I placed myself? That identification is what is the purpose of explaining Jiva. So as we were saying in this particular reflection, this reflection is the Brahma Pratibimbam, the reflection of Brahman, having the similar properties as the main source, but and independent of the main source, you can't see a reflection. Now I want to ask a question. Oh. Can you see this now? No. Can you see the slide?
Not yet.
No? No?
Yeah, now we can see.
Okay, great. I want to ask a question here in this particular image. Who is a Jiva? The understanding of Jiva, the human. Why? What is the difference? This is a real reflection, and every example, please understand, always has a limited scope to convey a point. Our topic is we are trying to understand who's a Jiva, who can be called a Jiva, because For a longest period of time, since this word has been lost in our vocabulary, we have replaced it with the sense of individual. Individual is recognized to us. It's a term of recognition. I am an individual. And there is knowledge around the word individual. But I'm not certain if we have knowledge around the word Jiva. I can't call myself a Jiva. I can call myself an individual, but I am not able to trace the word back to my identity. Do I call myself a Jiva? So to understand that word Jiva, one thing we said, the one who breathes is a Jiva. And then now we have said Sthula Sharira Abhimani. Now, why is human a Jiva?
Because he has a sense of I.
Sense of I. He has a self-cognition. He has a self-awareness. Now look at the small baby robo in between. This picture is quite interesting actually. If you just see the robo, a humanoid, we are all in the process of creating humanoids. Human science is evolving to form humanoids now, who should imitate humans. Now, who should be able to do the tasks of humans. Now, what is this made up of? From this now, whatever we have done so far, what is this robo in between made up of? A humanoid.
5 elements.
5 elements. Which 5 elements?
Earth, fire, space.
Okay.
Water.
Yeah. Which one? Cross.
Stool.
Sthula elements.
Yeah.
What is this made up of? This body? This body? Body.
Full elements.
Sthula elements. What is missing between the two?
The
Sukshma.
Sukshma element. What is the Sukshma elements making? Antakarana.
Mind, ego.
Exactly. Antakarana.
Yeah,
What is absent in the robo? Antakarana. Now what is present in this? Antakarana. Now where is the self-awareness expressing?
in Antikaranam?
Antakarana. This one has an Antakaranam. So there is a reflection in the Sukshma element comprising of maximal sattva, highest content of sattva. And so there is this cognition of I am. But this humanoid, I find it very fascinating. If you just look at the humanoid, has the capacity to do certain tasks, is programmed. That means it has a limited knowledge. Compared to this humanoid, the human has,
Human also has limited knowledge.
compared to humanoid,
unlimited knowledge.
compared to humanoid from the perspective in comparison only of the two, definitely has more knowledge than the humanoid and actually has unlimited knowledge because he's the one who is now a creator and the humanoid is the created. This one who holds the limited knowledge is created. And the one who seems to be having, comparatively again here, compared to the humanoid, limitless knowledge, unlimited, because you are creating more and more forms of robots. Now you have the potential to create, just as a potter has a potential to create as many pots, a goldsmith has a potential to create as many ornaments because he has knowledge of how to make the ornament, how to make the pot. This human has a knowledge of how to make a robot. Unlimited knowledge. He can create any name and form because he has the principle that creates it. Compared to the robo humanoid, he cannot express self-expression, but he can do tasks. He's created to do tasks. This particular limited one only can do specific task. But this one who has self-expression can do
More tasks.
multitasks, can do many, multifold, multiple tasks. Rest of the life is tasking only. His whole life is tasking only. Biggest difference. This robo is not called a Jiva, though is showing animation, made up of 5 elements, but has no self-awareness. And having no self-awareness, cannot identify where it's expressing. So even if it will say, I am Alexa, good morning, what can I do for you today? Alexa, play me the music. So what does Alexa do? Plays the music. Alexa, what is the weather? Alexa gives you the weather conditions, etc., etc. Even when Alexa is doing so many things that you can't see, but Alexa on her own self is not aware of what it does, of what it is, of what it can be, because it cannot transform itself. It cannot bring about a change to its own self. Very important. Alexa cannot bring about a change on its own self. It's a process of inertia. It'll remain in whatever it's programmed till some external force changes it. This human, knowing his own self, the greatest thing is that self-awareness, that he expresses it. Where it gets expressed, antakaranam, there the identification is up to that point where the indriyas limit themselves. In the robo, his tasks limit him. That is why cleaning robo, etc., etc. They limit him. Indriyas are limited. They perform certain tasks. But this antakaranam is actually inert. It's not a conscious thing. But the pratibimbam, it becomes a pratibimbam. So what happens? Now here where it is, in the robo minus the sukshma elements, there is no possibility of it having a self-awareness. So tomorrow, supposing human being wants to create another human robo, and that robo must have self-cognition, the minute it will have self-cognition, what will it have?
Ego.
Ego.
Sense of I, mind,
Sense
intellect.
of I, mind, intellect, plus now what will happen the minute it has this? What happens to with mind and intellect? What is right? What is wrong? I want this. I don't want this. The entire activity realm, desire realm opens up. And most important is something that makes a jiva, that he always feels himself as not complete. The biggest difference between a humanoid and a human is that a human, where there is self-expression and that idea of a completion of a self-expression with entire faculties that it has of its indriyas, which includes the possibility of the continuity of the species. Jiva Buddhi is an identification of all this. I don't know how clear have I got. Jiva means who? Who has an identification with everything that happens in Antakaranam. But what has really happened really is just a pratibhimbam of consciousness. Sunlight, original sunlight, reflected sunlight. It is only a pratibimb. That means, actually speaking, there is no I. This is a huge statement. Truly speaking, there is not even an I. There is nothing but awareness reflected in a material component which is functional through certain indriyas, and now such a one which has a reflection, and because it is an identification with the sharir now and the indriya, this reflection is now called jiva. And in technical term, in some prakriyas, in some acharya, though it's a post-Shankara teaching probably, but sometimes the term, if one goes into more diverse hearing from other sources of Vedanta, sometimes some acharyas like to use the term Chidabhasa, Chit Abhas. And here Chit would not mean Manobuddhi Chittankar. Here Chit would mean Chaitanyam, Brahma Chaitanyam. Abhas is reflection. So that which is reflected, the whole I sense, in other words, is avidya upadhi. It's an avidya upadhi. Because of avidya upadhi, this I entirely is mithya and entirely is actually negatable. Because it's not there, it's a snake. What you're seeing is a snake on the rope. It's just not there. And yet, because it looks so real, what happens? I am walking, I am talking, I am hurt, I am angry, I am not like this, I am want to be this, I wish I was this, I wish. So the whole life, every child born, it's just so illuminating just to get these many terms clear. Every child born has the same set of experiences, truly speaking, because no one, till you go through Vedanta Adhyanam and with Chitta Shuddhi and with Chitta Ekagrata, that Shravana Manana Nididhya, many spiritual practices that we just do not incorporate even if we know Vedantic knowledge. So what happens? That correction of I sense is actually not a real sense. That means I can interact with the sharir, I can do things, but I need not be attached or need not have an over-exaggerated opinion of the I as I see it. So who's the jiva now? If you come back to the point, Sthula Sharira Abhimani, this humanoid doesn't have it. So he's not a jiva. If I were to bring in a photograph of a reptile here, a bird here, the whole chart that you teach the children, kindergarten children, ye kaun hai, ye kaun hai, ye kaun hai, ye kaun hai, different species, this bird, that sheep, that deer, this, blah, blah, blah. Every form of life is characterized by Sthula Sharira Abhiman and Dvaita Buddhi. Jiva means, I am trying to emphasize because this is a very important word to be clear about from the beginning. Otherwise, the entire Vedanta study is as good as not done. Jeev kaun hai nahi pata humko. It's a very common thing to say, Arey, if you really value Jeev, this is where the Vedic culture emerged. If you really understand what is a Jeev, then you also understand along with it that it is so temporary that even when someone, you finish their cremation, you know it's gone. स्थूल शरीर का क्रिमेशन करके आए ना, वो तो बाद में किया था, आपने उसको जिंदा तो नहीं जलाया. So what went? कुछ तो गया, तुम कहते हो, मतलब हम कहते हैं व्यवहारिक, something went. And once it's gone, now this is inert matter, it'll just go to decay. So the value was of what? Was of that antakarana, where avidya is still the upadhi, and that person felt, I am this. Yes, because of which had a sthula sharir. So you and I see it. But the minute cycle's over, left, sthula sharir left behind, in sthula components, they cannot get back to its sthula. Sthula will go back to sthula component. Sukshma will go back to sukshma component. And the life cycle continues. Till where? Till? Sorry?
Till avidya continues.
Absolutely. Till avidya continues. So who's a jiva? Now this is only possible to understand. This jiva is continuously there. You and I, even when we go to sleep, has the jiva gone? Has the jiva sense corrected itself? No, it only resolves and resurfaces. When it resolves, it's sleep. When it resurfaces, it's waking. But in Vedanta, we don't even say it's sleep and waking. We actually, from a larger cycle, every day is birth and death. Your sleep is actually death, because you're not experiencing the world. You're not experiencing jivatvam. You're not experiencing the sense of I in sleep. That's exactly what happens in death. You don't experience all that. But did it end there? No. It surfaces again. That is why Shastra Vidya, whoever has it, however difficult your life be, however full of hardship it is, the greatest nishedha, pratishedha, greatest prohibition, the greatest thing looked down upon is act of killing yourself. Because that is not a solution. That means what? You live a good life, you don't have there is a way out for sure, but there is a method to be followed to figure out the way out. So the helplessness that a jiva feels, now you'll understand the words. Who feels helpless? This one jiva who's in identification with circumstances, situations, in time, identified with space, identified with people, and identified with the limited capacity of the indriya and the choices that you have. And you want to change them, because there's a pratibimba. In the Gita, there'll be the 13th chapter of the Gita, Kshetram Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga. This whole thing becomes a Kshetram, and Kshetrajna is this representation. So, one is now more clearer that every expression of a jiva will be the expression of limitation. And nothing will resolve it till avidya remains. And it is not so easy to say, okay, let's get Brahma Vidya, I am Brahman. It doesn't work like this, because then the whole world would be enlightened. So, the idea is that Upadhi Bhed, he is now going to start talking how to resolve this Upadhi Bhed. And that's a very essential step that comes to form the knowledge strongly. Here he says it in the form of a Nanu. Nanu has always represented throughout Vedantic Shastra, and it comes much more when you start doing Bhashyam studies. Nanu means an objectionable thought. So whatever is presented, and then you get a doubt, then you get some, incomplete knowledge will bring up a thought, that Nanu represents an objection. So someone has a doubt. There is an objection raised to whatever you have said so far. And what is the objection raised? This Jiva Buddhi is raising the objections. So it's not a person. Nanu represents the universal Jiva Buddhi objections. So a Jiva Buddhi identified will obviously say, what have you spoken just now? You are saying Jiva, Ishvara, Bhed, Drishti, till I hold, I have no freedom. But how is it ever possible to reconcile these two? So this Nanu is saying, whose thought is कि ईश्वर वही है ना, सर्वशक्तिमान है, सर्वव्यापी है, ईश्वर is Maya उपाधि, so he has no limitation. ब्रह्मन ही तो है ईश्वर, सिर्फ माया उपाधि है बीच में. That means limitless है ईश्वर. How can this limitless ईश्वर sa ahankarasya? I'll just introduce the question, then we'll continue tomorrow. Sa ahankarasya, the one who is with ahankar. I am this jiva. Kinchit nyasya, knows very little. Itna sa janta hai. You know? He is a knower of very little things, very few things. It's like my humanoid. This humanoid knows very little. He's not compared to humanoid, human is an Ishvara. This humanoid is a kinchit nyasya, जीवस्य, जीव की इतनी सी उसके अंदर बुद्धि है, along with his ahankar. Nirankarasya, Ishwar is what? Nirankar. He has no ahankar, free of ahankar. He's not identified with a small little creation as his body. Sarvajnasya, contrasting to me, the little knower, he is all knower. Ishwarasya, that Ishwarasya. Tattvamasi iti mahavakyat. Katham bheda buddhihi syat ubhayoho viruddha dharma akrantatvat. He says this is a viruddha buddhi. It's a contradictory thought. So how is it possible to resolve this contradiction in the Mahavakya, which says Tattvam Asi? Because these two buddhis, Tat Buddhi, Tvam Buddhi, you are saying that I must resolve who is an Ishvara is the Tvam Buddhi, who is a Jiva is Tat Buddhi is Ishvara, Tvam Buddhi is Jiva, and you are saying as long as the Upadhi is there, I will have no freedom, means I must resolve the differences in the Upadhis. But how is it possible? Because one Upadhi is Sarvagnya, without Ahankar. The other Upadhi is Alpagnya, with Ahankar. How can I resolve these two Buddhis? If such is the question, means how can you cross over Akrantatvat? Impossible to cross over. Since they are so viruddha in dharmas, iti chet, if such a question, if such a doubt is there in any jiva, na, that chain na is broken up as chet na. Answer is, so after chet, as if there is a full stop, then na is the answer always in Shastra. So nanu will always start to represent the jiva buddhi bhed, confusion or doubt, and then its resolution in Shastra starts by na, no, that thought is incorrect, and then starts the resolution yukti, logic which supports that resolution. And what is it? Sthula Sharira Abhimani is what is indicated by the Tvam Pada Vachyartha. We'll continue this tomorrow. Vachyartha means jo kaha jata hai. So when I say you means Sthula Sukshma Sharira Abhimani, which is Jiva. That is the meaning of Tvampada. And then he says, what is the Tvampada? So tomorrow we do this. So what is a Tvampada? In this manner, you do the vichar of the Tatpad and the Tvampad, and that vichar will end in Chaitanya Rupena Abheda. Both of them are Chaitanya Roop. And when that is Badhaka, when that gets known, then Badhaka here is resolves. That dissolution is negated. So we'll end this here today. I'll continue tomorrow.
ॐ सर्वेषां स्वस्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु सर्वेषां मङ्गलं भवतु सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामया सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्य परिपालयन्तां न्यायेन ब्राह्मणेभ्यः शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु काले वर्षतु पर्जन्यः पृथ्वी सस्यशालिनी देशोऽयं शोभरहितः ब्राह्मणाः सन्तु निर्भया ॐ शान्ति शान्तिः
Excellent. Oh, wonderful. Great, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Do you
Deepti.
have any questions, anyone?
I do.
Yes.
I lost you when you said that I am not I.
Did I
I
say
couldn't.
that somewhere?
You said, right, that Jeev is not even I.
That statement, yeah. Yeah, that is a sentence one does lose. Because that's the truth. If you understand that statement, it's correct. See, actually speaking, from when you reflect on this whole thing, initially we take the help of I, thought. Like last class I said, there are two ways in which you look at the Pratibimbam. One is that there is Chaitanyam, in which all the thoughts are reflected. All thoughts get known. And the other way in which the Prakriya is, where every thought has the consciousness along with it. You are aware of every thought. So all thoughts merge backwards to I thought. As this much familiar we are by now, that without the I thought, you don't know any other thing. So this itself was a leap in our thinking at that point. Now we are familiar with this thought, that without I, there is no thought. But I itself, how is I known?
In connection with the body, in connection with the sthula sharir.
That is
Because
how you know it. That is the I that we are already knowing. I'm saying, but how do you have the cognition of I?
Antakarnam.
Right. That is the starting prakriya. But if you think deeper, if you think more along the lines, you realize that actually I is only the binder of all the thoughts, sure enough. And that I is with Sthula Sharir, this individual, this much is familiar already. But the question is, in I, the sense of I, you start removing, I don't know if we did this in the workshop or not, but you start removing all the thoughts with I am. I think I did tell you to write, I don't remember now.
You told us to track the thought, catch the thought.
Correct. When you catch the thought,
your
okay,
thought.
maybe it is in another section of this not done. You're supposed to just go on writing everything about yourself. Be self-descriptive as much as possible. Fill pages. As much as
This is
possible.
part of the Panchakosha. You told us that maybe you'll do an exercise wherein you said to catch where the fault is.
Maybe there, but I don't know how much we'll do now, but let's see. But if you just say write a few pages of yourself, everything starting with I, and then start removing all the later parts of it. I is left. Now the question here is, that I cognition is supported on what? It's come the individual has come in connection with the body. No doubt about it. That's why I am this body, and all my thoughts are centered around it. But what is the I centered on? When it is centered on the body, it's called a jiva. But I itself, sense of I, not. जब मैं अपने आप को मैं भी कह रही हूं, तो मेरे मैं का कॉग्निशन कहां से आ रहा है?
The ego.
The ego is already मैं. It's very subtle. It'll take a little time to gulp and digest. But constant hearing, sometimes it falls. This मैं itself is actually an abhasa,
It's a reflection.
is a reflection. वही तो snake है.
Like the sun in the pot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this मैं over here is the sun in the pot. That means this मैं is also lit by somewhere, no? So what is that streak of consciousness which lights मैं? That is Atman, that is Brahman. And when that is there, then this I is not there. It is one of the other thoughts. It's one of the many thoughts. So I is just another thought then. There is no individuality associated with it. The individuality associated with I is Jiva. Is that reflected Pratibhimbam? But when I trace the consciousness that reflects the I, and that's what Ramana has shown in his prakriyas, in his sayings, whichever little he said. Trace the consciousness. Word is consciousness in English. As I've said from day one, I use it only for communication. It should be replaced always by Atman. Only then knowledge forms. The light of I. Where is the light of I? How is it becoming aware? How am I self-aware? Is it the matter alone? Matter doesn't have the property of consciousness, because then every matter should be conscious. A humanoid should become conscious. The minute I create it, it should be conscious. Every entity should be conscious. So matter doesn't, it's just a reflecting subtle matter, so it can have like silica on the sea beach. Suddenly reflects so bright that you almost glare on your eyes. It's a property of matter. But unless until there is something to reflect, how can it reflect? It's not self-reflecting. Matter is not self-reflecting. So when you see that trace of, that's where very deep this portion becomes nididhyasan, reflection, contemplation, or when you are quiet with a very peaceful mind, and that's why everything gets connected. Your duties get connected, your devotion gets connected, because only that will bring the quietude enough in the mind and the objectivity and the detachment in the mind to be able to focus on that streak of consciousness, of light. Is which word will you call consciousness as? But it is self-recognition. So when you know it, means you know you are aware. Now it's just that we've never delved deeper into knowing. How do I know? That streak of consciousness, from where is it?
Okay.
Where am I expressing consciousness from? Where is it coming from? Did it come with my birth? Will it die with me? And that's the big question mark. Does it come with my birth and die with my death? Means I am a conscious pop-up, like a popcorn with my birth amongst the whole group of popcorns. And one of the pop-up I am. And then it goes away, it's chewed up and gone in time. Carl gulped it down again and then disappeared. No consciousness, another pop-up comes. This is the various schools, and each individual has to discern what is the truth. There are many theories available in creation. But if you think consciousness is born with the body and dies with the body, fine, you can accept it, live a life like that. Will it resolve samsara? You see the whole vision of Vedas is the only mature vision, and truly speaking, the only intelligent vision of life. It encompasses as many factors as possible in its model to drive home the solution also. We'll end here.
Thank you, Deepti ji.
Take care.
I guess it's a question that we really need to, ponder on.
Stay with.
So,
Actually, it's a
yeah.
question which can you only stay with because the answer is already ingrained in it. It's a question which reveals the answer. There is no external answer to it.
Thank
There
you
are only
very much.
pointers to that answer, which is the
Thank
whole knowledge. It will point towards it. But staying with the question will reveal the answer. In time, whenever. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ji.
Thank you, Deepti ji.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
I understood finally that part that I was getting stuck on. I think that was just आपने जो अभी explain किया. It was a wonderful repetition. I had understood all of that, but for some reason I was still getting stuck on that part कि हम माया को उपाधि क्यों कह रहे हैं. But जब आपने explain किया कि माया is also actually imaginary. It's not real. It's also, I think that part sort of really.
Excellent. Correct. It is an introduction.
Yeah.
Real is, see, the whole point is real is only one. Now, it's, why have we introduced, if you ask a question, and all these analysis comes in Brahma Sutra at the last point. If you have got a pinprick, a thorn stuck in your finger, how will you remove the thorn? You'll need something.
Another pointed object to be able to.
Exactly. You'll need another pointed object to take it out. That taking it out, of course, it's a limited example because body throws it out also if it's not gone too deep in time. In 10 days, 15 days time, it slowly keeps throwing it out. But limited example, you will need another thing, a tweezer or something, a needle. As fine as this is, so fine will have to be the equipment. If it's a thin piece of that wood splint, if it's just a small splint that's gone in the skin, you can't take it out with the Ari. What will happen if you take it out with the Ari? You will take out the phalanx itself. If you use an Ari on that which is gone. So what is avidya? Sukshma. So what will you need? You will need another sukshma vichar. Any thinking will not uproot it. You will need an equally sukshma vichar to remove it. So to introduce that sukshma vichar to your antakarnam, which is only jiva buddhi. See, where are all these vichar going to happen? Not outside. If I think I'm a jiva, who's going to need the correction? Whose antakarnam will have to have another set of thoughts? Exactly. So it's my antakarnam which will have to be fed with another sukshma system of thinking. And it should be flawless because it should point to the truth then. If it itself has flaws, then I am stuck at another point of a jivatvam. That is what religions make us all. We become bhaktas at the end of it. Bhakti is not wrong, but it's one of the ways in which you get to there. So it picks you up. Sure enough, from being a jiva, you become a better jiva. Service in the world. One religion will say, serve karo, serve karo, serve karo. What do you become? You become a better you. But does that remove jivatva buddhi? So it's only removal means nivartate. It withdraws. It dissolves away. Actually, कुछ नहीं होता है उसका कुछ बड़ा it just goes dissolving. That's how they say जितना ज्ञान आता है उतना अहंकार dissolve होता है. And ahankar here is not the way we talk in Laukik language, ego of that sense. The sense of individuality also disintegrates because totality is so that Brahman is so sukshma, cannot be conveyed anyway. It is your nature. You just the introduction is of the Jiva thought to remove this Jiva thought is the Maya thought introduced, like a pinprick, a needle, a thin needle. And yet it cannot be an imaginary thing because then you are now living a delusion. A system of knowledge which will just say there are so many neo-religions in the world, cults that become cults. They just create their own philosophy. A whole independent system of thought which suddenly attracts a whole bunch of humanity. And then they start following it and then they are stuck after 15, 20, 30, 50 years. And by then a generation's already come. Their children have come and they're halfway here and halfway there. And what is a Vedic system? Eternally guiding, because what has got introduced, the more you understand this, the more you're in awe. That's why I think हम सब वैसे ही झुक जाते हैं, I think अंदर से, because the awness of this knowledge is just irreplaceable. The more you understand, the more you just are in awe. How did you even come to so close to getting awareness of this knowledge? Because the world is full of all kinds of knowledges. And when you begin to see that this whole method is actually a methodology, it's not introduced to make fanatics or believers or nothing. It's a beautiful methodology to convey something which is subtle, which cannot be conveyed through sensory perception. It's not a knowledge to be verified through sensory perception because you are a self-perceiving person. The knowledge is about that self-perception. It is not about who you are in the sense of qualities that you will become. I can become kind-hearted after knowing this knowledge. I'll become compassionate after knowing this knowledge. I will become rich after knowing this knowledge. I'll become successful after having this knowledge. It is not about all of what you will become. It is what you are. The knowledge of what you are, which you're missing, which we are all missing. So that, the whole thing becoming so logical and, that's why they're extremely finely balanced. These were Rishi's visions at the end of it. And they were like science erupts, then it has to be systematized. These were eruptions. And then they were systematized. And when you see the systematic, it cannot be systematized as an objective knowledge, not possible. But when you see the methodology that is there, that's the only time actually I would say that we enter Vedanta. Till we don't pick up that methodology, we may be hearing, but it's still not Vedanta. Vedanta begins when you pick up the methodology. And once you pick up the methodology, then everything falls into piece like a jigsaw puzzle. Those 10,000 pieces or 100,000 pieces, those art and craft things you have, wall paintings, you have this whole, what is it called?
Jigsaw puzzle.
Jigsaw puzzle.
Is it just a jigsaw puzzle? Okay. That's particular in the whole scenery there with a lot of those pieces. It's just called a jigsaw puzzle. Okay.
Yeah.
So much effort.
But the one where you stitch into a painting, like which has different colors and you have different colors.
It's a diagram and you just have those broken pieces. You just have to see which piece goes where.
Yeah,
That's a jigsaw.
Oh, okay. So initially when we come to it, we are only given a bundle of those pieces in Vedanta and Vedic view. Vedic view is all those bundle of pieces. But when you start putting the pieces correctly, there comes the vision. Even if one piece is left out, you don't have the complete vision. So great. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, teacher.